I know Representative Gary Click, one of really the best in the country, of course in the state of Ohio, but across the nation. And yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to have Representative Click and Klopfenstein for sponsor testimony.
But there's no more local control than Bob and Betty Buckeye.
Well, that explains why he keeps saying, well, that's not the way Representative Click does it.
I'm not supposed to get emotional, but I am.
Then we sat down with Click to discuss his bill and the controversy surrounding it.
And the chair would like to invite Representative Click to present testimony.
The question is, shall the bill pass? The chair recognizes Representative Click.
Welcome back to What's Clickin' with State Representative Gary Click. This week's episode is a bit of a somber episode as the representative, along with 3 other representatives, reflect and pay tribute to the life of Charlie Kirk. Representative, can you tell us a little bit of what we can expect in this episode?
Yeah, Janae, this is kind of the episode that I wish we never had to have. Did not anticipate this being the third thing or the third topic that we would cover. I wish we never had to cover it. But as everyone knows, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and it'll be 2 weeks ago a little over 2 weeks ago by the time this episode airs. And, Riordan McClain, a good friend, as well as Tex Fischer, one of our newer legislators, and Adam Byrd and I got together to just talk about Charlie and to pay tribute to him. Tex, as you'll find out, worked for Charlie Kirk. And Riordan, we just all have a lot of respect for Charlie and the work that he's done. I will give a little bit of a warning is that we did have some technical issues while trying to record this. And so Adam Byrd got disconnected while we were recording, couldn't get back in, and his audio might be a little off in the early parts of this episode. As we cover that. But, Adam made a great statement and, we carried it on in the rest of the podcast. And, but when he was describing Charlie, he said Charlie Kirk was like a cross between, Rush Limbaugh and Billy Graham. And isn't that, and I thought,
Wow.
He just nailed it. He really nailed it. And then, someone else picked that up a little bit later. So we'll have a little bit of Adam Byrd in the beginning, and the audio quality is not that great with Adam, unfortunately, but I don't want to miss what he had to say. So if you can just bear with us on that portion of it. And then, Tex and Riordan and I, carried on the conversation. And our episodes, we're trying to keep our episodes around, 25 to 30 minutes. This one's going to go just a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it, to pay honor and tribute to Charlie.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into this episode and hear what they have to say.
Well, I am honored to be joined today by some of my good friends in the legislature. And today we are going to pay a tribute to Charlie Kirk. Today, as we're recording this, it is exactly 1 week after Charlie's assassination. And by the time that we post this online, it'll be another week. So it'll be probably almost 2 weeks by the time that you're seeing this. But we just wanted to, pay some honor, pay some tribute to Charlie Kirk, who is a hero. And I just want to introduce my guests today, my colleagues in the legislature. And first of all, just Adam Byrd's a good friend of mine. He and I collaborate on a lot of things, and very often Adam will shoot me a text from Charlie Kirk and say, hey, did you see this? Or have you listened to this yet or not? And so on and so forth. So Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you were when you heard this news and how your initial gut reaction.
Yeah, so I'm a state representative from Southern Ohio. I represent Claremont and Brown County in Southern Ohio, and in my third term. And I was actually in our office in the Rife, and Riordan McClain shared the news with me, and it's just was totally devastating. It was really hard to keep going that day, but he has been such an influential guy, and I know we're going to get into that as we proceed. And but I was a daily listener of the Charlie Kirk podcast, daily. And he was an unbelievable guy who was a mixture of Billy Graham and Rush Limbaugh, and so that's why he captured my daily podcast attention, and he almost feels irreplaceable.
Yeah, I would agree. I like that characterization. Rush Limbaugh mixed with Billy Graham, and that's so apt. That's so accurate. Riordan, I think I've known you longer than anyone else in here, and I was actually part of the screening process before you were appointed, and never have regretted that. You've done a fantastic job in the legislature, and I appreciate your friendship. So apparently you told Adam, but where did you hear about this, and what was your gut reaction?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I appreciate your friendship and all that you do as well. And yeah, so I'm state representative from Wyandotte County, represent Wyandotte, Marion, Morrow, and Crawford counties in the legislature. Last week, I think many of us were in Columbus. We had caucus that morning. My staff told me, they said, "Hey, have you seen what's going on with Charlie Kirk?" And immediately went to social media, try to find out whatever information that was going on. I think we were all just in shock and just kind of disbelief. It couldn't be real. And even, I mean, even now, a couple in the days afterwards and the moments afterwards, it's just such a shock. He was such a powerful figure in the conservative movement, but also in the faith community. He that characterization of Rush meets Billy Graham. I've not heard that before, but that I think it's perfect. I think he blended both political ideals. He backed them with reason, logic, but also from a faith perspective, and he shared his faith everywhere he went. And I think he just embodied so much of the ideals that I carry to the State House, and articulated them so well. And not only did that, but really engaged culture and went to where the battles are. And we know so many of the battles of ideas are on our college campuses. And he went directly into the line of fire, went to where those ideals were being shaped, and had such an impact on so many lives in that space. And so still kind of grappling with what has happened and what we do about it. I don't think anybody really replaces Charlie Kirk. I mean, he was such a dynamic individual on a lot of different levels. But I think his life empowers my life now moving forward, and all of our lives moving forward, on setting an example for us and how to engage with respect, peaceful debate, challenging ideas, but standing for what you believe. And he did that till the end.
Yeah, totally agree. Tex, I think you're the youngest person on here, maybe the youngest person in the legislature. I'm not sure.
Think so, yeah.
I will say you're the one person who gives me hair envy. And so I think you got enough to spare where you could share maybe some locks of love or something like that. But I got to insert just a little bit of humor in a somber conversation here today. But and I'll read that. So I want you to just kind of give us the basic rundown like the others did. But then I've got a follow-up question for you.
Yeah, so I'm Tex Fischer. I represent the 59th district, which is southern Mahoning County, just south of my hometown, Youngstown, and a small portion of northwest Columbiana County. Had the privilege of serving with the three men on this podcast for about a little over a year now. Got appointed last summer, won a full term last November, and was actually driving home from caucus, I think like most of us were last week, when we heard the news. I don't remember I just remember my phone started blowing up, tons of notifications, a couple of phone calls, everybody kind of in a panic telling me that Charlie had been shot. There'd been no information or anything at that point, other than somebody had really shot at him at that point. And the really strange part for me was driving on that stretch of road on Route 76, virtually the exact same stretch of road where I was driving home last year when President Trump was shot in Butler. Was a very eerie, kind of similar situation. And that's one of the parts about the whole thing that just really is odd to have that experience in the same place. And I think there was a part of me that hoped it would be a similar situation where there wouldn't have been a tragic, they wouldn't have succeeded. Unfortunately, they were successful, and we lost a great man and somebody who meant a lot to me and into my own career, that I really wouldn't be speaking with any of you here today if not for having met Charlie Kirk and worked worked for him many years ago. But yeah, it's been a very difficult week, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, and that leads me right into the follow-up question. I know you as a young man worked for Turning Point USA. Tell me, how I've seen pictures, and maybe we can get one and we can share that with our audience. But you look so much younger in that picture. So tell me how, as a young person, you got acquainted with Charlie Kirk, with Turning Point USA, how that kind of launched your activism and put you where you are now.
So I met Charlie Kirk at CPAC in 2013. Just kind of quite literally ran into him. I was there. I had just been kind of had my political awakening the year before, decided to volunteer with the local Republican Party in 2012. Realized
How
that
old were you at the time?
I was 16, about to turn 17. So we were in kind of a mess of people, and I just like bumped into this guy and was like, "Oh, you're roughly the same age and same height as me." Didn't think anything of it, and then I went home. But then the guy that has helped me get to CPAC was there the day after I'd gone home, and he saw Charlie speak or introduce a panel or something. He was emceeing and decided to go up there and say, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy." Being me, you guys have a lot in common, similar age. Like, you should connect. He's just starting a Young Republicans Club in Mahoning County, and so then, sure enough, the next day he sends me a Facebook message, and it just kind of goes from there. He tells me about the organization he's trying to start, offers a bunch of resources for my Young Republicans Club. We stayed in touch for really the next year and a half, 2 years. And then he invited me in 2015 to go to CPAC with Turning Point. They had just created their ambassadors program. So if anybody was at CPAC during those years, you saw a whole bunch of college-age kids running around in red polos, trying to get people to come to the Turning Point booth for various different reasons. And so I was really blessed to be able to go to CPAC. Through Turning Point, I met some really great people that are my lifelong friends through that experience. And then on the way out, he offered me a job doing voter registration in Northeast Ohio. And I thought it was a great opportunity. I was really excited at the opportunity to work in politics, which is what I decided I wanted to do. And so was really fortunate to have that opportunity, and that turned into a full-time job over the summer, field rep, and then ended up working there for 3 years, almost 3 years as a regional manager, covering, a handful of states: Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, West Virginia, et cetera. So, I worked there for 3 years. Charlie was a great leader, a great person to get to know. And looking back now as I'm older, to have proper appreciation for how impressive it was, what he was able to do to be only a couple years older than me and start an organization which turned into a organization that probably employs thousands, and does incredible work across a whole bunch of different fields in the conservative movement at that age, and the pressure that comes along with that. And that's not something that I think I fully appreciated at the time. Is, when you're in your early 20s running a multi-million-dollar organization made up entirely of people in their early 20s, like, that is a challenge. And the fact that was able to be successful is a testament to his leadership. And I can't say enough about how great that experience was, and both for me personally, for my career, and I think just for the movement and all the people that he touched through that experience. I've gotten so many text messages from former campus activists that I'd recruited, chapter leaders, people I haven't talked to in almost 10 years at this point, just reaching back out, expressing appreciation for being able to work with Turning Point and meeting me and all the friendships that we created. And it's been a touching experience, although incredibly somber given the circumstances. But I think it speaks volumes to the movement that he created, and I was privileged to play a very small part in that.
Wow. And so it sounds like you were actually with him from the beginning.
Yeah, we're
almost.
in the first hiring class that the organization had, where they actually decided, we're gonna put it all out there. We're gonna put all the money we raised on the line and try to grow this, grassroots, boots on the ground. And it was obviously incredibly successful.
And so do you know how many employees there were at the time?
I want to say it was about 15 in that first group of people. So if I'm not mistaken, there were 3 or 4 people on staff before that big expansion of the field program. So it was a pretty small group. I think our um, first staff training, there were maybe a total of 20 people there. So all things considered,
And how many are employed by the organization now? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, between Turning Point Action, the campus program, the high school program. I mean, I would estimate it's probably in the thousands or close to it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I did not realize that. I knew you were tied in, but I didn't know that you were actually right there in the very beginning. So what an honor that was. And, Charlie just, some people are just gifted. And Charlie was gifted more than just about anyone I know. I had the fortunate opportunity to meet him last December and spoke to him at the National Association of Christian Lawmakers down in Scottsdale, Arizona. But when you just listen to Charlie and you talk to Charlie, or you watch him when he's having one of these dialogues or these debates, it's just incredible. He at the age of 31, how much he knows, how well he's able to articulate it. It's almost like he's got a photographic memory, and once he sees it, he remembers it, and he's able to express it in a cogent way, and also in a compassionate way. And I think one of the things that I noticed about Charlie was that he was always trying to add. He's always trying to bring people in, and rather than just to insult people. And of course, anytime, we know there are people that anytime you don't agree with them, they consider that hate. They consider it an insult if you don't agree with them. But in all actuality, he was very civil with people, and he was trying to bring people in. And you don't bring people in through hate. You bring people in through kindness and through reason. And that was the approach that he took. Let me just shift back over to Riordan for a second. So I know you and Tex are introducing a resolution about Charlie Kirk. Tell me how that came about, what it says, what you hope to achieve with that.
Yeah, so I mean, in the legislature, we have the opportunity to do a lot of things, whether that be change, revise code, and make statutory change to our law and structure, or one of the other things that we do is we pass resolutions many times to honor individuals, to signify the will of the legislature, and the idea of putting this in is simply that is to give the Ohio legislature the opportunity to pass a resolution to commemorate and honor the man that Charlie Kirk was, and that the ideals that he stood for, his commitment to his faith, his family, peaceful debate, engaging the other side. I mean, he said many times, and it's remarkable how in this last week his message has immensely been amplified from the horrific event. I mean, anytime you open up your phone, Charlie Kirk is there, and the message of getting out there and debating ideas, and that the idea that when the debate stops, when you stop talking to each other, that's when things get bad, and that's when civil war and violence really get amplified. And so those are the ideals that this country stands for and it was founded on. And so the idea for this resolution, and we were talking about ways to honor Charlie, and had the idea to put this resolution in, immediately reached out to Tex, knowing his involvement, his history with Turning Point, with Charlie, was the ideal person to help have on this bill. I think probably many of us in the legislature would want to be on it, and we have many people who are co-sponsoring it to show their appreciation for Charlie. But that's really what it is to give our colleagues in the legislature the opportunity to pass this. It's nothing more than a resolution saying that we, the Ohio legislature, honor who he was, what he stood for. But then also we want to make sure that we condemn the violence and the murder that was committed against him. So we want to give our colleagues the opportunity to put their name in the Ohio legislature behind that.
I know as soon as I saw that, I immediately responded to put my name on there. I imagine many of our colleagues did as well. Do you know how? And I know sometimes we miss things in an email, especially when we're, on our summer break, as things will get lost in an email. But I imagine you probably have a number of co-sponsors on there. Do you happen to have a number handy? Are you still working on that? Is it still out for co-sponsorship?
it's still out for co-sponsorship. We're giving it time. And we're hoping to get all of our colleagues. I think this is something that I would like to get everybody to sign on to. And so we're not gonna cut it off. We're gonna give people opportunities to. I don't have the number. I mean, we're well. Last time I looked, we're right around the 30 number. But we're make sure everybody sees it and has the opportunity to put their name on it. We don't want it, anybody to say I didn't see it. So we plan to
Right. No,
introduce
that's
it this
great.
week.
And ideally, this should be a bipartisan thing. I don't know if it is. It should be. I do know that the college Democrats joined in on a joint statement with the college Republicans in response to this, and I thought that was a good thing that they did that. So hopefully, we have a lot of people from all sides of the aisle, both sides of the aisle, to condemn the violence and to honor somebody who stood up for what he believed in. I think that's just very important and very incredible.
And Charlie was a political activist. So obviously not everybody's going to agree with the political policies that he believed in. That's the country that we live in. But yeah, this should be a bipartisan resolution that everybody can appreciate the way he went about it, the way that he engaged with people, the way that he respectfully presented his ideas. And I have seen people talking about how he spewed hate, and with really very little actual examples of him spewing hate. When you go back and listen to how he engaged with people, the actual conversations he had without taking it out of context, without kind of sound clipping, he gave a very compelling message to his ideas. And so I'm very hopeful that we can get a bipartisan resolution through the Ohio House to appreciate his activism, appreciate how he went about his debate, and certainly condemning the way he was killed.
Well, I appreciate that. Somehow we had a little technical difficulty, and I'm texting Adam. We kind of lost him here for a second. Where do we go from here? I mean, what are some things is there something that we should change? Is there something that just society should change? What is the answer forward? I notice, and I really don't want to turn this into a partisan thing, but the reality is, when we see what the other side does, they get to this, something like this happens, and they're burning down cities, and instead we're having candlelight vigils. What is really kind of the thought that I have is we need to learn how to debate policies without demonizing people. Mm-hmm. How do we move forward, and because we see that sometimes, we see that inside the tent as well. And we know that the Democrats will do that a little bit. We know that even within our own party, sometimes we see that, we've experienced that. How do we move forward to say, listen, let's talk about our policies in a civil manner without demonizing somebody who might disagree with us a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's really time to double down on what Charlie did and his methods, because I think this has been a wake up call for a lot of people. And I think we all probably have seen some of this on social media, people that we didn't really know that had political leanings or political inclinations at all, expressing support, even with the caveat of, and everybody says, I didn't agree with everything he said. And of course that nobody is going to agree with everything somebody says. But I have seen an outpouring of support of people that I don't know through politics. Other people in my life have been kind of telling me the same thing, of a whole lot of people that are, I think, finally awake, or that may have been, a little bit concerned to share their beliefs. And I think the natural human reaction after something like this is that you kind of do want to be even more quiet, because you don't want to risk your safety or your family's safety. But I actually think we're seeing the opposite, of people that are emboldened by this. And I think this is a great opportunity to double down on all of that, and to understand that, there's a lot of vitriol out there. We've seen a lot of really disgusting commentary of people celebrating this or making excuses for it. I mean, just on CNN, the text messages from the shooter to his boyfriend, somebody on CNN referred to them as like touching. And I don't know how you can arrive at that conclusion. and I think most people don't view it that way. But if you look back at, there are so many videos that are now resurfacing of, everyone talks about how Charlie spread hate, Charlie spread vitriol about, transgender people, whatever the group, that they want to talk about is. And all I'm seeing are all these different clips of him when he's actually talking to, whether it's a transgender individual or whatever else. He speaks to them with such compassion and grace. He doesn't change the message of what he's saying, but the way that he interacts with them is so incredibly respectful, and so kind. And I think that is something that is completely lost in a lot of the narrative and a lot of the left-wing reaction to this is not somebody who would confront people with anger and hate and nastiness. I mean, this is somebody who, would respond to people being incredibly aggressive and nasty towards him at these different events with, in some cases, nothing more than just wit and humor. He didn't return nasty comments with nasty comments. He really, truly did try to engage in a debate, and he was incredibly good at that, better than anybody, probably that anybody else in our movement, at just how quick and insightful and knowledgeable he was on different things. But
I think that one of the things that I notice is people don't know how to respond. People who hate have a hard time responding to someone who won't hate them back. And they want to come in and yell at Charlie and accuse him of certain things. And they come up and the nurse says, "It's okay. Take your time. Take a deep breath. Tell me what you're thinking." And that's just a unique way of responding. And I don't think the other side, I don't want to overcategorize, but many on the other side don't know how to deal with that. Riordan, comments?
Yeah, no, I think, this is an act of evil, pure and simple, but God can certainly use this for good. And I think that, the amplification of Charlie's message and all of those videos that you're describing, are going everywhere. And I think there probably are a lot of people who didn't listen to Charlie, the last 10 years and aren't conservative, and so haven't followed him like we have, that have only heard the categorization of him by others, and maybe some of the clips taken out of context, and not shown that full dialogue that he had with many of people who disagreed with him, and that compassion and that just standing on truth, but in a compassionate, loving way. And I think that from this, all of those videos that are there forever and will continue to be shown, people will see, my hope and my prayer is that people will continue to see those and kind of invest the time and kind of see where they were coming from and representing and misunderstanding who he was. And so I don't know I don't have the answers of where we go from here. I don't know how, like I said before, I don't think we can replace a Charlie Kirk. He was kind of one of a kind, but he did give us a playbook of what it looks like to engage the other side, what it looks like to share your faith, what it looks like to share your ideals, what it looks like to go into hostile environments and change hearts and minds. I mean, the work that Turning Point has done through the years on shaping a conservative, youthful generation is, I don't even know how you count that. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of lives that he has touched through his work and given them a view of the world that is going to be a benefit to America and has changed hearts and minds. And I saw a stat, I think Turning Point put out either today or yesterday, that over the last week, they've received something like 32,000 requests to start chapters, somewhere in the country. I mean, there is just a huge flood of people saying, well, what can I do? How do I engage? There was a big, I saw many people talking about how they maybe haven't gone to church in years, but they heard Charlie talk about it so much. They heard him talk about his faith that they were willing to say, hey, I'm going to honor Charlie and I'm going to go to church this Sunday. And so, I mean, there are so many ways that there is going to be something good that comes of this. Charlie's an American icon. His legacy is cemented now, that, unfortunately, but I think he had a long future ahead of him had this not happen, and maybe, political office at some point in the future. But now it's cemented. He is an American legend, and he's shown us and has been an example to conservatives and young folks around the country of how to do it. And now it's on us. Now it's on us to go out, find ways to engage the way he did, in our own way. I don't think any of us can kind of draw a crowd like he could, but we can do something. We can engage our local communities. We can engage those around us, and we should.
Yeah. I think of a couple scriptures. I think about, in the Old Testament, there's Joseph, and when his brothers had wronged him in a horrible way, they didn't know that God was in control. And when they found out he was still alive, because they thought essentially they had killed him by selling him into slavery, and then he became the second ruler of Pharaoh, and they were afraid that he was going to take their lives. And he said to them, he said, "You indeed meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." And I think that one of the things that I think about also is that scripture where Jesus is talking, and he said, except a kernel of wheat or a corn of wheat is what the way the KJV says it, but a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it abides alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. And so just like when you plant that grain in the ground, it has to go in there, and that seed's got to die. But when that seed dies, it comes up and brings a lot of fruit. And I see that already from, Charlie Kirk. And while they thought they were going to extinguish him, what they don't know is they lit the flames for a conservative Christian movement that is really going to change the world in Texas. One of the things that I'm seeing that Charlie had a huge effect on is people used to look at conservatism as kind of the old guys' domain, and people like me, and it's just old people, and all the young people were on the liberal side. But that is shifting tremendously, which is one reason why I think that many detested Charlie, and they tried to paint him. Of course, I carried the SAFE Act, and I had a lot of people. I tried to be as kind and compassionate through that process as possible. And yet I had people, just because of the ideology, they called me hateful. They do that to Charlie. But in reality, he was very loving, very kind. He was always trying to help people. And the truth is what really, the passionate truth, knowledgeable truth, is what attracted many young people. Speak to how he really attracted young people, how young people are flocking towards conservatism and even to the Bible these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of it is he was just so talented. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. He really was this generation's Billy Graham mixed with Rush Limbaugh, and he was able to approach issues. And to be clear, he didn't articulate like a new brand of conservatism. He articulated traditional American conservatism in a way that worked with young people, because I think part of it was a young person that was speaking to them. He challenged them to actually think about the things they were saying, and still doing it in a kind way, but in a witty way. And honestly, looking at the videos, his videos that performed the best online, even before his killing, he was really good at it. He was so quick on his feet. He was able to do things in a way that I think even nobody else in the movement could. I think Ben Shapiro certainly made a name for himself doing that sort of thing in previous years. But I think Charlie was able to do it in such a visceral way, because he would physically go. He would just sit on a campus all day and take questions and debate with people. And I cannot even imagine doing that for like 2 hours. I mean, it's, I enjoy Q&A and all that sort of stuff, but just to sit there for hours and deal with that hostility and still do it with a smile and do it with grace. He was a great messenger for it. He wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. He was just articulating conservatism. And, I think that's part of what made him special, is just he was a one-of-a-kind talent. And, I think to see where the movement is now, and specifically the organization, versus the vision that he articulated to me, 10 years ago when I was first working there. He has far surpassed, what he has left behind far surpassed even what the dreams he had when he was 18 or 19 or 20 years old. And that says a lot. I think we all have huge dreams and huge ambitions around that age. I certainly did. And Charlie did probably more than anybody that I knew. And to see what he's left behind is a job well done, and that he was able to achieve not only what he set out to do, but far exceed that. And the entire element of his, I think this more recent phase of his life where he had turned to really using his platform for ministry as well, as that was something that was always true, and that meant so much to him, to his core, as his faith. But that wasn't a part of what Turning Point started out doing. That was an entirely new thing, and I believe that was just truly driven by Charlie and his own passion for his faith in his own heart. And I think that was another element of it as well. And I think that you've seen a wave of younger people that have been pushed to the brink with progressivism, where it's like every institution, whether it's the family unit, church, community, all these things have been turned into really villainized by the progressive movement. And I think you're seeing a kind of snap back. The pendulum is swinging back towards those traditional values. And I think Charlie's example, living that in the public eye, has gone a long way towards promoting that. But I think particularly now, in wake of his killing, I think it's going to be even more pronounced and even more intense. And I think that will probably be the legacy that he would be the most proud of, is the people that he's brought to faith through his words and through his deeds, and ultimately through his passing. I think, it is going to be incredibly potent, and I think it's going to continue to grow at an even more, an exponential rate.
Yeah, I think so. I know it hasn't been that long ago when he actually started Turning Point Faith. And actually, the first time I ever heard of Turning Point, because there was actually a Christian radio broadcast called Turning Point with, I think, David Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, is this the same thing? And then I realized it was actually something different. But I know that he incorporated his faith a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I get criticized for that, of course, being a pastor. And people don't understand that, many people don't understand that the history of our nation was founded on Christian principles. Now, that doesn't mean we excluded anyone non-Christian, but our faith, and they want to silence people of faith. And Charlie would just have nothing to do with that. It's like, no, I'm going to proclaim my faith boldly. We need to apply these principles in American politics, because that's what made America great in the first place. Any thoughts on that from either one of you?
Yeah, so kind of with what Tex is saying, it's, he started Turning Point, and really when I was following him, he didn't talk a whole lot about his faith. It was all traditional conservative ideals, from a logical reason standpoint, with conviction, and that's the basis of Turning Point. That's what the political engagement was. And I do think that he evolved as he got older, had started a family, really felt compelled from what I can tell is, felt compelled to share his faith, and kind of what the core of what shapes your worldview. And then from a faith perspective, the political differences that we have, we debate them with ideas, we debate them with policy changes, but our faith gives us the lens that we see the world, and gives us the lens to see others. And from a Christian worldview, we have compassion for everyone, and we know that we do want to share our faith and the relationship that we have with Jesus with others, and the impact that has had on our lives. And it certainly has been vilified by others, and that it goes. I've heard a lot of people talking about all of the bad actions that have been done under sort of the Christian banner, and it always reminds me of sort of the misconception that's had with taking the Lord's name in vain, and that's not necessarily just cursing a swear word with the Lord's name.
Right.
That's actually doing a hateful action, doing something that is unbiblical, unchristian, under the name of Christ. And that has been done through the years. And people have taken that, that sinful act and have used it to categorize the Christian faith. And that's not what it is. And Charlie probably articulated that over the last couple of years better than anybody on a national perspective. He gave his biblical worldview. He gave his political worldview. They are intertwined. The principles are together, and he did that with compassion. He did that one-on-one with many times large crowds around him, but he did it in love and grace. And it's going back to some of those videos that are now circulating. Someone asked him recently, what do you want to be remembered for? And it wasn't sort of the political, it wasn't any of that. It was, I want to be remembered for my courage and faith. And it was so important. It is so important to all of us who have faith and shapes who we are as people, the way that we see the world. And so you can't take the faith perspective out of what Charlie Kirk brought to the world. It's not what he wanted, and that will forever be his legacy.
I think you're right. And I like the way you phrased that and the way you talked about that, because the reality, people want to like blame religion or blame Christianity. And whenever they do that, there are people who've done wrong things in the name of Christ, but whenever they did something wrong in the name of Christ, it wasn't true Christianity. It was a deviation of Christianity that took place. So I really appreciate you gentlemen jumping on here today, and we try to keep these episodes a little brief, but I think this one's probably going to be a little bit longer than most, but I think it's worth it. I appreciate you sharing. Any final thoughts before we sign off here? Go to you first, Tex, then back to Riordan.
I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share and talk about this. And I just think the most important thing is that we have the correct takeaway from this situation, that we, respond the way that Charlie would have responded, which is to not back down, to continue to move forward with grace towards the people that we disagree with, and continue to make sure that we have those conversations, because Charlie is somebody who unequivocally was murdered for his beliefs. This wasn't, a random tragedy. This was a targeted, ideologically motivated murder of a private citizen. And that's something that we have not seen in our country at this scale in a very, very long time. And I think we are at a critical juncture where we need to come together with people across the political spectrum and make sure that the value of debate and free speech is upheld, because free speech is not about the things that are easy that everybody agrees with. It is the right and the freedom to say things that may be controversial, that may upset people, but that is the entire point. And it's on us to conduct ourselves with grace and courtesy to those that do disagree with us the way that Charlie did. But it is very, very important that we do not allow this to be something that stifles the public discourse and stifles the debate. And I think this is why the resolution could be so important. And I really sincerely do hope we get some support from across the aisle, because I think it would be a very potent statement to tell the rest of the country and to tell really the world that we value the right to have these conversations, whether they're comfortable, whether they're popular or not. The right to have those conversations and have those conversations without fear of being murdered for them is, we will not survive as a country in anything that resembles the America that we grew up with, the America that we know and love, if we don't double down on that and maintain that is a critical bedrock of what our country is all about.
Riordan?
Yeah, Tex is exactly right. That's what has to happen. And there was a thing circulating, and maybe Gary, you can clip it or include it in some form or fashion. But I saw someone asked an AI generator, like, what would his own commentary on his death be? And AI just obviously just pulls from the information that an individual puts out. And so it was actually pretty powerful. It was in Charlie Kirk's voice, and it was, talking about don't lose faith, that he knew, what he was getting into. He would do it again. And talked about exactly what Tex mentioned there, is that you don't back down, that you do stand with conviction, that you follow the mold that he put forward, that you engage with others, you share your ideals, and you challenge them with what you believe, and listen to them with what they're saying. And it's that dialogue is what America is, and is what makes America great, is that, we don't have top-down control. We are a government of the people, and that we are responsible to engage with others and find those commonalities, find where we agree, where we can actually make positive change. And it's horribly tragic, this scenario, and I hope that it never happens in this country again. It's happened too many times. Senseless killings of people for their ideas or what they stood for, and it's never okay. And we should all stand in solidarity against it. And I certainly hope our colleagues, all of our colleagues in the legislature, will agree with us on that.
I do too. And like I said, we already saw an example from the college Democrats, and I commend them that they stood up and said the right thing along with the college Republicans, and that unity amongst our youth, that, there's a line that we just can't cross. And I think that was good to see them all come together on that. And I had the opportunity, they had the prayer vigil this week down in Dublin, and I had the opportunity to be there and to offer prayer. And, I just envisioned, and maybe I'll share that at the end of this, I don't know, but I just envisioned Charlie opening his eyes in heaven, and the Lord just placing that crown of martyrs upon his brow, and just whispering in his ear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And I think that speaks a lot about Charlie Kirk. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you back in Columbus soon.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing tribute
Okay.
to an incredible man's life and legacy. And listeners, just know that it starts with me and you to carry this legacy on. Representative, I'm sure you feel the same. This was an incredibly difficult topic to cover just 3 weeks into a brand new podcast, I'm sure. But again, we are so incredibly grateful for all that Charlie has done, and I'm sure you feel the same.
I do, and I know, he's touched us all, but I think for your generation, and people your age, Charlie was even more significant, more important. And I think one of the things that, we took out of this too is, it used to be that, conservatism was for old people. But there's a new breed of conservatives, and the younger generation is rejecting a lot of the bad ideas of radical leftism, and
Yeah.
they're coming back home. They're coming to the core of what made America great, and what will make America great again, and that is in no small part due to the work of Charlie Kirk.
Yes,
And so we're
absolutely.
certainly grateful for that. And thank you for bearing with us in this little bit longer episode today. But I think you all would agree that it's worth it to pay tribute to Charlie.
Absolutely. Listeners, as we continue on, Representative, would you want to give us a preview of next week's episode?
Absolutely. I think we've got that ready.
All right, let's do it.
So the eclipse is one great example of how we can take an opportunity and turn it into something great. But I think when a lot of people think of a vacation or a getaway or things they want to do, they don't always think of Ohio or Northwest Ohio or Seneca County specifically, but there are really so many unique things in our community that we are so lucky to have. For example, we have the historical Ritz Theater that holds shows, comedians, plays, the Chicago Ballet that people come from all over to see these different shows and production. We have the Seneca Caverns, which is the caviest cave, and to be able to go there, and a lot of people that come back, they're like, oh, we're visiting family. I remember coming here on a field trip when I was in 4th grade that are coming back and seeing that, hearing those stories, getting to explore it is amazing. I have managed to hit my head on a rock every single time, but it is a great experience. We have things like the Fostoria Iron Triangle Royal Park is that rail fans from across the country, across the world are coming to visit this rail park. It's on their top to-do list, and you see 80 plus trains pass through Fostoria a day.
You've been listening to What's Clickin', the official podcast of State Representative Gary Click, covering Ohio's 88th House District. That includes Seneca and Sandusky counties in Northwest Ohio. I'm Janae Myers, his legislative aide. If you would like to reach out to us, you can send us an email at rep88, that's REP88, at ohiohouse.gov, or you can give us a call at 614-466-1374. Thanks again for joining us for What's Clickin' with State Representative Gary Click. We'll be back again soon to let you know what's clickin' in Ohio.